A lion was born without a drop of nobility in his blood. A lion who would change our lives forever. Mufasa.
First and foremost, I want to start with you, Aaron, because I would just say coming into this, everybody knows Mufasa as this like paternalistic character. He's a king. He sees everything that the light touches is his domain. Playing him as a younger version, how did you approach that?
Honestly, I got a tremendous amount of guidance from Barry Jenkins. I was nervous. I was nervous and I didn't know how I was going to approach it. This was the first time that I had ever embarked on a professional commitment that was voice only. So I really didn't, it was different to going into, a play in the theater or going onto a film set or a series. I didn't have any notes to refer to. So I was very much going in bare and really grateful to Barry for just guiding me. And there was a lot of failing forwards and then hopefully failing into a moment of success. And once you found that, really mining that. And fortunately, a lot of that happened at the beginning. And once we found that pocket where Barry and I kind of looked at each other and said, that's him, that's when we really took off. But I give all the praise to Barry for the guidance that he provided me with throughout this journey.
And Kelvin, you kind of had the same task, but even more so because there's a duplicity and a duality to the Taka/Scar. There's a change in who he is. So how did you approach that first part, the boyish one that we meet at the beginning?
Yeah, I think I was just thinking about it, and I remember I was listening when I started hearing what Aaron was doing. I was like, how do I complement that? And there was such a smoothness to the Mufasa sound that he was finding, and I was like, how do I complement it by disrupting it a little bit?
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Because I was like, Taka is a little bit abrasive and a lot not self-aware and wanting to be seen, but having this like being pulled back. It's like the little kid that's running, but the parent's holding his t-shirt, or the little brother that's holding his t-shirt. I was like, that's the vibe I wanted to have. So that's how I kind of approached the Taka stuff. And then the turn was really just a lot of listening to Jeremy Irons and seeing how many colors from that I can pull. And then throwing it all away, having fun, trying it again. Seen if Barry liked it. Barry didn't like it. Tried it a different way. And that was that.
I've talked a lot to his composer, Nicholas Britell, and also talking to Lynn earlier today. Barry is very quick. He's like, nah, that's not it. And that's so funny saying that word to you right now. I just we're going to come back to that. Tiffany, for you kind of had the opposite in the sense that Sarabi is obviously somebody that we know from the first one, but you really got to show more of what we see with her. So how was that for you, kind of coming in and knowing that you could fill in a character that we didn't have as much backstory on?
Yeah, I felt like I probably had the most freedom to you guys got to explore. You have a lot to go off of already, but it's like you're kind of tied to some part of that and have to find your way. Whereas it's like, Sarabi, you don't know a whole lot about her. You just know like she's like this wonderful mother and wife and she's this pillar of strength. But it's like, okay, who else is she? You know what I mean? I find with a lot of female characters, you just get the like exterior and you don't get to know like what's happening with that woman, because a lot of people don't know what's actually going on in the minds of women, right? So,
a lot of men don't.
A lot of men don't, right? Or they don't explore. We don't explore in our stories enough. And so to have like this pillar of Sarabi and then to be able to complicate that and figure out how she got there and her pain and her joy and her confidence. And I think Barry a lot of times would be like, Tiff, do that feisty thing. Like he wanted the the saucy part of me, which is really fun to be able to bring out. So I just had a fun time every chance I got to be able to play with her and find levels with her.
Obviously, knowing that, without spoiling too much, we know this is going to be a story of Scar and Mufasa. They're going to be about their backstory. But when he comes in as Taka, when he makes the turn, without spoiling the events necessarily, did you change anything about the voice? Like, how did you sort of approach that second half of the character that was different than what you had to do in the first half?
I think I just dropped. I wanted to just drop it in a little more, like all 10 toes on the ground. Fine. It was also, I make a lot of jokes about this roaring workshop that I made up in my head, but I wanted it to be a little bit of like, if a roar was coming out of a voice, you know what I mean? Like in his tone and his speech, there's a growl to it. And I think that's also what I loved about what Jeremy did. There's a little bit of, it's coming from the belly, I guess, of the pits of disgust.
Yeah, yeah.
And disbelief. and wanting to just blow the whole thing up, you know? And it came from an emotional place, and once I lived in that place, I think it sounded appropriately. But oh my gosh, I remember being in the studio just going off, and everybody was like, "You good? You need some water?" Barry be like, "You don't want to lose your voice, bro."
We got a lot more to film today. He's like, I'm not losing days on this. Let's do it. And that actually brings me to my next question. Working with Barry, I'm sure, is like such an incredible experience, because I know this is the first time he did this, but talking to folks in Moonlight, and also If Beale Street Could Talk, they talk about how empathetic and careful he is as director. So I'd love for you all to talk a little bit about one of those moments where you're like, I'm so glad I'm working with this director and he really helped you dial into a moment or something that you need to do. And I'll start with you, Aaron.
Well, I've been blessed to work with Barry on more than one occasion, and really, how Barry operates is how Barry operates. It's full of love, it's full of collaboration, inclusivity, and he really just ensures that everyone is exactly where they need to be to feel safe, because once they feel safe, that can only be conducive to their best work, and having a good time. I felt that in abundance on the Underground Railroad, and I certainly felt the same here. He doesn't create an environment which invokes fear of getting it wrong. He creates an environment of doing it until you find it. And I think that's a really special thing.
He also does this thing that I find, this sounds like I'm about to try to flex, I promise I'm not. But I just
Please flex, it's your movie.
But I just did the movie with Pharrell, and Pharrell and Harvey Mason Jr. were producing the tracks when we were recording the album. And Barry works similarly to them. They don't give you an opportunity to overthink. So literally we'd be in the studio and he'd be like, bring in the beeps. Beep, 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 go. It was never like too much like processing what you did and judging what you did. They're just like, sing it, act it. And I want that gut instinct. And I think that was something that was a real tool and like asset for us in the process to just bring the rawness to it.
I love that. What about you, Tiffany?
Yeah, I think something I've said before is like I wasn't prepared for like how much joy he brings to it and how silly Barry is. I just think of him as like this serious, like Oscar winning director, right? But he really has fun doing what he does, and he wants everyone to have fun. And so I know there was times where we're filming and he probably see on my face where I'm like, I'm messing it up. How am I gonna do it? And he's like, come on, let's do it. Come on, girl, you got it. Like, let's do it. Do that thing. Like, you know what I mean? He's like pumping you up and having a good time. And like you said, he's just like, doesn't let you get too in your head about it. Let's just keep doing it. It's not the end of the world. We're doing something fun. Do it. So yeah.
Love that. Last question, Circle of Life or Hakuna Matata?
Hakuna Matata.
Hakuna Matata.
Hakuna Matata.
I don't think anyone's going to pick that one. Also, let me just say, how many people are saying nah to you? Like, I just want to know. I mean, it's a thing.
I love it. I love it. It just really warms my heart. You know, when you're blessed to have a moment that resonates, no, it's great, yeah.
Say it.
Can I get one? Just
say it.
Nah.
That was smooth.
I'll tell you a story. A story of a cub, not much bigger than you.
So just to be clear, we're not in this story.
There's a lot of stories with all of us. Tell one of those.
Seth, Billy, congratulations on the film.
Thank
I
you.
want to start with this. Did you know when you were doing the original Lion King that they were going to keep continuing like this? And when did they tell you?
No.
No, they told us after. I assume once, they greenlit the movie and all that. But I feel like I read they were making another one, and I was like, oh, hope we're in that.
Yeah. No idea. Had no idea.
Yeah.
And it's funny, I remember when we were making the first one, I was like talking to my agent or something, and someone said, well, you know, if they make another one, and I literally said, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
Like, they're not going to make another one.
Yeah.
You know, here we are.
Here you are.
And if they do, they won't make us promote it at a zoo.
Right, exactly.
You know?
And here you
We were
are
on
with
it.
giraffes behind you. No, it's so great to look at that. But talk about working with Barry, because I know that like John had a very specific vision for that first one. And I don't know, how did Barry tell you that you guys were going to basically be the narrators of this incredible journey? Like, how did that whole start? Seth, I'll start with you.
I think it started when we arrived at the recording session to
Wow.
record the characters. I didn't know anything really, and we got there, and he explained that we were the Peter Falks of this, of the Princess Bride of this.
Yeah.
An analogy I'll never stop using now.
Which we've stolen from another
Yes, exactly.
junket.
That we were kind of like, helping kind of facilitate the telling of this story that would ultimately be the movie. And I was thrilled, and I was just happy to be included,
And then also, they did it differently. Normally, y'all are very isolated. They actually had y'all in there together to like riff. What was that like for you? Because I know you've done other animated stuff. I think, is this the first time you've had somebody like right next to you?
We did it for the 2019 one, and
Yes.
Jon Favreau was very smart to insist upon that because it's not usually done for these movies. But Timon and Pumbaa are a duo.
Yeah.
We need to riff off of each other. We need to be in the room together. So really happy that Jon made that happen, and then that Barry also insisted on us doing it that way. And so much of what we do in the movie is improvised, and so much of the improv stays in the movie that it's shocking.
Wow.
Yes.
Well, I'm curious, what's your favorite riff of it? Because y'all did a ton, like whether like breaking out into song or like, I'm not going to do it now. Like that one felt very you.
I mean, we improvised almost everything that wound up in the movie. So if anything, I was just shocked at the sheer volume of how.
Do you have a favorite one that you said, or like one that you were happy
The
made it
Hakuna
in?
Mufasa bit made me laugh as we were doing it, and no part of me thought that would make it into the film at all, and it did.
Were you the same one?
Loved Hakuna Mufasa. We also have these very like kind of meta, almost more adult asides
Yeah.
that Seth and I would probably say in a more adult movie that somehow ended up, I mean, nothing inappropriate, but like that are in the movie, shockingly.
Yeah. And then when did you find out the Blue Ivy of it all? Like, how early did you know she was going to...
I found out a couple of days into recording from Seth.
I told him.
I had no idea. No
You
one
had
tells
no
me
idea?
anything.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
And I think I found out from Joy, the editor.
Oh, Joy McMillan.
Because we are good friends, and her and my wife were actually roommates when we first started.
Shush.
When me and my wife first started dating 20 years ago.
Oh, wow.
And so Joy was over for dinner one night and was like, "Isn't it crazy Blue Ivy's in the movie?" I was like, "What?"
Yeah.
6 Degrees of Beyonce, always there. I have to ask this to everyone: Hakuna Matata or Circle of Life? Which one is your?
I mean, for us,
Yeah.
it's Hakuna Matata.
Yeah.
Hakuna
Circle
Matata.
of
I
Matata.
feel
But
like this is
Circle of Life,
But Circle of Life
a
is
beautiful
Circle of Life
song.
has
Great
its
song.
moment, you know.
Yeah, people like it.
Talk a little bit about
People
work.
like it.
Yeah.
People like it. Talk a little bit about working with Barry and sort of like what he's sort of talked to you guys about. What was he like behind the scenes, letting you guys sort of riff and everything?
Super encouraging.
Yeah.
Obviously, an insanely gifted filmmaker. An honor to work with him. And I think we just built on, for the two of us, we had established, our chemistry in the 2019 version. And Barry was like really encouraging in terms of just leaning into all of that, ad-libbing a lot, improvising a lot, not worrying about what would end up in the movie or not, just like going off and seeing what happens.
What about you? What was it like working with Barry?
It was great. Again, I've known him a really long time and so he was like a great audience as well. Like he was very encouraging, and he made us feel like what we were doing was funny, which I think made us feel as though we can keep trying more and more stuff and pushing it further and further. So I remember it being just like a very fun exploratory experience, and the fact I remember I would see Joy throughout the process. I was just like, I can't believe how you have to like sort through all that stuff. and she was always like, it's great. She's like, you'll be thrilled with how much of it is in there.
Yeah, and it turned out really incredible. I will say, first of all, it looks really great and it's so cinematic. How much did y'all get to see, or did you get your final like viewing of it, and what did you think when you finally got to see it with the songs and everything sort of like dialed in?
I was kind of blown away. Yeah. I had no idea what to expect. I watched it alone in a screening room on the Disney lot in LA. And, you recorded so far in advance and we improvised so much. Truly, I had no idea what would end up in the movie.
Yeah.
So to see it all come to life, so to speak, truly, I thought it was just incredible. It's such a fun movie.
Yeah. And the two guys, the leads, Aaron and Kelvin,
good.
Not that y'all aren't great, but they're doing it.
They're fantastic.
What about you? Did you watch it by yourself? Did you watch it with
I did. I watched it on a laptop computer in my trailer.
As Barry intended.
10-minute chunks over the course of a day. Exactly as the filmmakers hope. It was, yeah. And again, to what Billy was saying, like, I feel like it had been so long since I recorded it. I had no idea what was in the movie. I had no idea what was going to happen. I don't think I ever read like a full script for the movie apart from our scenes. I kind of pieced together what was happening from our narration, but I didn't actually know what happened in the movie. And so I just kind of watched it as a movie, and I loved it. And I was like, man, I'm in this movie. That's even cooler.
Yeah,
exactly.
Also, I think what's interesting about this one is like Mufasa and Scar, it's like dynamic duos. Do y'all have any other favorite like Disney or just in general cinematic dynamic duos? Because I feel like obviously Timon and Pumbaa are one, Scar and Mufasa. What about y'all?
Oh man, I must.
Lots of great duos in film. Come on.
Well, of course, the first one that comes to mind, obviously, is Thelma and Louise.
Yeah,
the best duo.
that is let's not go off this
Tango
cliff.
and
Yeah,
Cash.
exactly.
Yeah.
There's Tango and Cash.
Tango and Cash. Can you tell we're in our 40s, by the
Somebody
way?
needs to do a remake of Tango and Cash.
That movie does not hold up.
I don't care. Because when the guy gets in the car at the end, like, and it's just like, why does
It's
he
like
have
a monster truck. Why, oh yeah, he's the super cop car, and then they're like souped up the weird guy.
I'm excited for the Barry Jenkins reimagining of Tango and Cash.
About it's like a really emotional
Yes,
relationship.
new songs by Lin-Manuel Miranda.
Exactly.
greenlit instantly?
I'd go see it.
We do not associate with outsiders. Tucker is the future king. We must protect the bloodline.
But, Dad, I saved his life.
Barry, I'm start with you, sir, because when I saw Medicine for Melancholy, I think in my mind, I knew that you could have a movie like this in you. But I'd love you to talk a little bit about your journey to get to this and how you're sort of like looking back on the filmmaking. Like, what was different? What was the same doing a film of this size?
Yeah, it kind of came down to the script. You know, the size, like, sort of just like ignored, disappeared, didn't acknowledge. You know, there's so many themes in this film, themes of found family, you know, themes of a character, you know, trying to stand into their own light and sort of be true to themselves that are directly related to like a character in Moonlight. You know, if I told you this movie is about a young kid who has this biblical experience in water and then is separated from his parent, I could be talking about Moonlight or Mufasa. And so to me, the second part of it was, and here's this wonderful new toolbox, you know, all these new tools that other filmmakers are using. You know, I spoke to Matt Reeves, who told me about how he was previsiting the Batman using the same virtual production technology we used to make this film. And I know Greg Fraser used to set up all the lighting in Dune 2. And so we went into this thinking, well, there's got to be a place for us to figure out how to use our voice with these tools.
I love that. If you can, see the Greg Fraser book on Dune 2. It's gorgeous.
Okay,
like
will
just
do.
This out for us. Lynn, I know from talking to Barry previously, like when he was working with Nick, he likes to sit down with composers and really sort of like take them into what he's thinking. I'd love for you to give us a preview of what that conversation was like, what influences he was maybe pointing you to, and which ones you found on your own.
Yeah, I mean, listen, we were both at the service of this Lion King extended universe. I mean, not just that immortal 1994 original, but the Broadway musical, what Beyonce brought to the conversation in 2019 with her album The Gift. Like, she kind of expanded the vocabulary of what Lion King music could be. So that was really exciting. I always felt like I had space to create. And then the other thing I said to Barry and to everyone at Disney was like, please let me work with Lev O.M. on this. Like, that's the secret sauce to me. I think his voice, his harmonies, really differentiate this from any other music in any other movie. And so it was, I think he was excited to work on new songs after 30 years of The Lion King, and we were really excited to get him in the room.
Speaking of which, since you brought up The Gift and Blue Ivy, who's on The Gift and who's also in this one, I'd love for both of you to talk a little bit about working with her, because I mean, this girl.
I didn't get to work with her.
You didn't get to really work with her.
I got so close to Beyonce, and I didn't get to write any music for them. But,
It was amazing. You know, this movie is framed around, you know, Rafiki telling the story to Kiara, you know, Simba and Nala's daughter, about her grandfather, Mufasa. You know, I saw that as an opportunity to put children in the audience into the film, a place they can directly see themselves learning about their ancestor. And I think Blue really understood that. She's a really, really smart young person. And she auditioned for the part. I'd heard her in Matthew Cherry's Hair Love, the audiobook. And she just brought such a deep well of sort of like sensitivity, like just like innocence to the part, that you really feel her learning these lessons as the audience is as well.
For you, Lynn, I feel like maybe at this point Disney might have to lock you up in the basement to just keep making music for them. I've heard it said a few times. But was this any different than working on any of the other stuff that you've done with them? Or more importantly, I'd love to know what else you were doing when you're writing, because I love the story of the fact that you were writing Moana while you were still in Hamilton.
Yeah,
and so, like, where were you writing this?
Yeah, they always kind of come out as opposing muscle groups, which is pretty funny. That's how I like to think of them anyway. I was writing Warriors, my concept album with Issa Davis, while I was writing this, and really kind of along the same timeline, 2022 to now. And I think they were different enough that I was never confused. But it was, again, like, it's all in the joy in the collaborators. Working with Barry and Lebo and Mark on these songs was so distinct from working with Issa on, I realized the other day that, like, all my musicals for the stage are in New York, and then, like, Disney's my passport. Yeah. Like, with Disney, I get to go to the Pacific Islands, and I get to go to Colombia, and I get to come, and play with all these wonderful African rhythms in Mufasa. So they were really different.
Oh, I love that. When we spoke to John about the first Lion King, he talked about, again, the technology and how much was changing at that time.
Yeah.
From then until now, if you could maybe give us a preview, because it feels like, I don't know, it's so further along, but it still feels so familiar. So how much of that was something that you blueprinted into this, and how much did it really surpass it?
Yeah, it was really interesting. We worked with the same animators from the 2019 film, some of the same production team. And so we started with the tools that they had built, but so much time had passed. And this technology, 6 months can feel like 6 years. And so it had evolved. And what we did was we were trying to find a way to take virtual production and make it live. And so we actually went down and visited the Avatar guys. And a few of them came over and workshopped with us because we were trying to find a way. I love, you're in a scene, I stand up. You might step back. The camera's going to respond to that. Yeah. But describing that to an animator, you can do it, but it doesn't feel lived in. So what we tried to do was build as much in virtual production as we could, and then we got the animators in suits, we got the camera live, and we're blasting the voices of the actors on the stage, and the animators are moving in real time. They're drawing with their bodies, and the camera's responding. I think that's why you might see a more elastic camera in this film. The technology didn't exist to do that in 2019. Thankfully, we were able to evolve it for this, and so I call it like a hybrid live action virtual production that was really cool.
I know that, like, with any kind of aspect of filmmaking, some of it comes out very easy, some of it you have to keep going back and refining. So of the original songs, which one was the one where it was like, you got it in 5 minutes, it comes out? And which one was the one where you and Barry had to keep kind of going back and forth? Because I know from talking to Nicholas Britell, Barry will tell you very quickly, like, nah, that ain't in it.
And Barry, and we were also helped along by this world. Like, Lion King's a genre of music. It's not just one movie. And so I knew very quickly, before I even got it to Barry, whether I was writing a Lion King song or not. But Barry's notes always made what I was writing better. I think the fastest is probably Brother Betrayed. And without giving anything away, it's because I was writing consecutively. By the time I had to pretend to be Taka in that moment, I was there with them. I'd seen what had happened. And so it all kind of came
Can I say one thing about that?
Yeah.
I remember I called you about that. You were like, yeah, my wife said the same thing. I'm already on it.
What did your wife say? I want to know her notes.
I don't remember what the note was.
She was on it.
My wife is the smartest person I know, so she always has the best note. She's a layer before I even send it to Barry. And then I think the toughest was Milele, because it's hard describing paradise. And so I was helped along by some of the descriptions in the script. And I listened to a lot of just like spirituals and church music to just sort of get it there. And I also left a lot of space for Lebo to do his thing. So that melody is very like methodical so that it can grow and Lebo can add layers to it.
I definitely want to make sure we don't get out of here without talking about the two incredible lead characters in this and the sort of like musical moments that they have together. Yeah. Talk about working with Aaron and Kelvin, who are just, I think, two of the most exciting young actors in Hollywood.
It was so cool working with them. You know, I I didn't picture them together. You know, I'd never seen them work together. MLK, the Genius show, MLKX, that happened while we were doing this, and so I didn't have that to look at.
Yeah, Malcolm X, Martin Luther King, Mufasa, and Scar.
But what
Amazing.
there you go. But what I loved about it was they're both so earnest, and what we needed was not two people who were trying to, I have to become Jeremy Irons, I have to become James Earl Jones. It's like, no. You're a young person in your body going through these experiences, and right now, you guys love each other. You need each other. Things happen and you respond to it in very different ways. Let's calibrate that. It was really cool working with them and them understanding that, especially because we did the voices first. And so we really got to play. It was the two of them just going back and forth, playing and figuring out who were these two brothers at this point in their lives.
I will say, after seeing the two of them together in person, you're like, can I get the live action where we just get to see Kelvin and Aaron walking around?
Well, you two make it happen. Two directors over here. Thank you,
true.
gentlemen, so much,
you.
and congrats again.